it's one of those things where you don't want to look directly at it, but at some point, you just have to make eye contact, and because it just you have to know, kind of like a car
Right.
accident. You can't not look one time. I
hmm
have some regrets.
Stop laughing at me. Today we are talking about becoming a parent for the first time. I myself have no kids, so today I brought in a professional and what I will call a semi-pro, as Keller has not had a child yet, but one is on the way. How are you guys?
Good.
Good, and you?
I'm good. McMurray.
Are you now?
All right,
Not so bad in you.
So Midnight Minds, or Christian here, is obviously my twin brother, and some people who will be listening to this claim that I've just spent a lot of time and resources making it look like I have a twin brother, but here he is. And then there's Keller here. I've been friends with Keller for, I would say, almost 10 years. 8, 9 years, solid 9 years.
Somewhere in there.
And they're moving on with their adult parts of their lives while I stay immature. So we're here to talk about your children. Christian, you have a 9-month-old now, right? And Keller,
Yep,
you have one on the way
brother.
within about 2 weeks. So let's start with Christian. Actually, let's start with Keller. Let's go back.
Uh-oh.
Let's go back almost 9 months.
Oh God.
On the day you found out that you were having a child, like what was going through your mind? Were you freaking out? Were you like amazed? Were you sad? Were you scared? Not sad. Sad's not a great one, but like, just tell us what was going through your mind.
So that day was kind of weird because at work, I just had like a long day at work, and I came home and I was just like not having it. I just wanted to go home, lay down, and like maybe take a nap at like 5:30. And I walked into the living room and I almost missed it. But Allie had like made like a little tent sign that said "Welcome home, Daddy," and had like 2 little booties with like the pregnancy test in there.
Oh, nice.
And it was like on the coffee table, and not paying attention at all. Almost missed it. Like I had to double back because I was like, "What?" Yeah, I just had like for the next, I don't know, couple days, I just had the biggest grin on my face. Like I wasn't at that point. I wasn't really thinking about the scary parts of it. I was just like on cloud 9. Holy crap! I'm gonna be a dad.
Did you almost miss it because she always calls you daddy?
I was thinking that too. I was trying not to be rude and like just crack up laughing, but I'm like, just the word in general, just daddy, has changed so much since. It's just changed.
It felt weird saying it. It really did.
It felt weird hearing it.
Get used to it. When your mom's like referring to you as daddy because she's talking about your child's point of view, it's not. It's weird.
Did you say when your mom's referring to you as daddy?
Yeah, like when I send a picture of Elliot, they'll be like, "Oh, daddy must be proud." I'm like, please.
Yeah.
All right.
Or hey, daddy's over there. Go to daddy.
We'll just do a little bit of a back and forth then. So Christian, go back 18 months. I remember when you called me, but I'm pretty sure that was a while after you had found out. So what went through your head, and then I'll give my thoughts when you called me.
Yeah, so we found out on Labor Day. We had been in Kansas City for the weekend and came home, and Libby took a pregnancy test, and it was like 6 a.m. I think we got up to take the dogs out, and she's like, she goes, "I think it's positive." And I literally said, "Well, what the fuck does that mean?" and literally went back to bed, thought nothing of it. I think I had to go to work, so I got up like an hour later, went to work, came back on my lunch break, and there was a little basket in there with a little like, the boards people spell stuff out on, and it said, "I think we're gonna be parents," and it had like 5 more pregnancy tests, and I'm like, first of all, that's a lot of money. Second of all, what? And so
save it for the college fund.
Obviously at that
$45 for the
point,
pregnancy test.
literally. And so the next
That was
step
a guess.
obviously
I
is
don't know how much a pregnancy test costs.
They're
They're
not
not
cheap.
cheap.
No. And so then the next step is you call a doctor and you have to go get blood work done to make sure you have X amount of whatever in your blood and like parts per whatever. And so then we got a phone call, I think it was the following Monday, and they're like, yep, that did come back positive. And we just looked at each other like, okay. And so we actually did tell you guys pretty soon after that because we thought we were further along than we were. It turns out we weren't, but yeah.
So to make this clear, your child, your whole experience, Christian, wasn't expected per se.
Correct.
And Keller, yours was. You were aiming for this. Like you were expecting to be expecting soon.
Yes.
So let's go back to what go ahead, sorry.
We just we didn't expect it to happen as quickly as it did though. Just like hearing the stories of like a lot of other people who are trying for months and years.
Yeah.
And like for us it just kind of happened. I was like, oh, all right.
Well, I don't
like I was preparing for a long haul type thing, but
I don't know what the statistic is.
No, we definitely lucked out.
I don't know what the statistic is, and I'm not going to speculate too much, but I want to say it's like 1 in 4 couples take more than
like over
6 months or something to conceive. Mm-hmm. All right, so Christian, you said that you called us shortly after you found out, which to me even seems very early. Keller, how long did you wait to tell people, and what was your logic behind that? Why did you decide to wait?
So Allie told one of her friends who we already knew she was expecting.
Oh, yeah.
And so they had kind of talked about it. And so Allie was like, I have to tell someone. And before me.
Before she told her, or before you told someone?
Or like she needed to tell someone aside from me, like right away.
Oh, okay.
If that makes sense.
I thought her friend knew she was pregnant before you knew she was pregnant.
I don't think so.
Okay.
She might have, but I don't think so.
Not important. Moving on.
No. But yeah, so she told her and I think you.
You did tell me.
Yeah, you were my person.
I was your confidant.
Because we each have one person to tell, and then I told you, and then our mutual friend Ryan DeHaan, he and his wife had gotten pregnant a few months before then, and we decided that we'd tell them too. But then, so I don't think it was the following weekend, but maybe the weekend after that, we went down to Iowa for Father's Day, like at my parents' house, and we basically had to tell them because they'd be really confused if Allie wasn't drinking with us.
When you phrase it like that, it makes it sound like she always had a drink in her hand, but that's not necessarily the case. No. However, if you go to Iowa, you kind of need a drink in your hand.
It was a weekend with the family. We play cards, we hang out, drink. It'd be weird if she didn't.
Yeah.
So we just decided we had to tell them.
Is there a reason you decided to wait to tell your family before you told some of your other friends?
Yes. We didn't want our family to find out from anyone other than us.
That's fair.
Like if friends find out from like other friends, like, okay, not a big deal. But if some overbearing people like were to post on Facebook before you told your own family,
that's fair.
It wouldn't be that great.
So you wanted to make sure you covered your bases before you let somebody else just kind of shout it from the mountaintop and tell everybody else your own news, because that makes sense. Christian, I think you did something similar, right?
Yeah, I mean, typically you wait until after 3 months because the risk of miscarriage is like significantly less after like your first 100 days. I think we didn't wait because we were a combination of terrified and excited. We thought we were closer to 8 weeks when we were really only about 5 weeks. So that does, I mean, for the first, like, an extra 4 weeks is a ton of time, especially then. But like,
Yeah.
pregnancy is so much downtime. Like, between appointments, your appointments are every 4, 8 weeks, whatever. But like, there's just so much waiting. And then towards the end, you get like, within the last 10 weeks, you're like, okay, cool. And then you're like 4 weeks away and you're like, oh shit. And then you're 2 weeks away. And then at that point, you're just like,
Where Keller is right now.
okay, yeah,
So
right. But like,
tell us, how are you feeling right now? Like, you're less than 2 weeks. I know you're 15 days, right? 15 days away.
Yep. 15 days.
So I mean, I know you, so I think I know how you'd be feeling, but I've also never had a kid before. So I mean, I have no idea what that anxiety would feel like. So what's going on in your head right now? 2 weeks out from bringing home a child to your house with the dope wood paneling.
I don't know.
that's
it's
relatable.
It's a mixture of what, like, I feel like I'm not as freaked out as I should be.
Yep.
I don't know if it's maybe because, like, there's nothing we can change about it. This is happening. And so there's, like, my mind's just like, well, we're not worrying that much. And I feel like after our baby showers, we've got pretty much everything we need. That in between work and school, I've got a bunch of other distractions that have been taking up my mind space as well. So it's been harder to really worry more about the fact that I'm going to be responsible for a tiny human in just over 2 weeks.
Yeah, I completely relate to that. And actually today I was listening to Armchair Expert, and Dak Shepard was talking to Jason Segel, Marshall from How I Met Your Mother.
Yep.
And they were talking about how there was a quote from another actor who said, man, I wish I would have had a kid earlier in my life, because then I realized how much other shit doesn't matter. I wouldn't waste so much more time thinking about things because you're focused on that one thing. And like, I remember being 2 weeks away, and even the day before we had the baby, of like, you don't know how to feel. You don't know what to expect. And that was something that I was actually glad I didn't know what to expect, because otherwise you're going to fear it so much more. And like, I'm sure there'll be more questions about this in a little bit, but like, the anticipation of all of that, it's almost better to go into it just kind of nonchalantly and just kind of like, it is what it is. It's going to happen as it happens, and I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to survive along the way, because there is so much that I didn't know to expect for, but there are also things I purposely didn't look into, didn't research, because I didn't want to know what to expect, just because then your reaction is going to be so much easier to handle something than it is to be like mentally preparing, like, oh no, here comes that part. And so like, it's a very, very weird purgatory to be in when you know, like, she could go into labor right now. Statistically, she'll probably go into labor in the next 7 to 10 days. Like, it's just that weird, like, any minute now I'm gonna have to drop whatever I'm doing and do it, and there's no way around it. But it's also kind of a nice thing at the same time. It forces your hand.
That's actually my next question, is how did you guys, Keller, how are you and Allie preparing? And Christian, how did you and Libby prepare? Did you read the What to Expect When You're Expecting book? Did you watch the movies? Did you ask others for their experiences? Or did you just kind of close your ears and eyes and wait to figure it out yourself?
So to kind of go off of what Christian was just saying, like, where we're at right now is both of us, like, we both understand that there's a baby inside of Allie.
I hope so.
We both understand that.
That takes a long time to come to the realization, though.
Yeah. No, like, to fully, like, grasp it, it still doesn't, until I see the baby coming out.
It won't seem
No. And Allie's even said, like, it still feels weird to her that she's going to have a child, because she almost feels like this is the normal for the next 3 years, or like she's going to go to the hospital and give birth, or we're not going to come back with a baby, just because it's hard to wrap your head around if you've never been through that.
Yep.
Is kind of what we're going through right now.
Well, that's fair, because I mean, if Becca was pregnant right now, even if she was 9 months pregnant, like, for me right now, nothing's really changed at this point. I mean, for you guys, I'm sure you would have had like a nursery done up. Keller, I think you did yours a couple months ago even. You've probably looked at saving money a little bit differently. You've probably been to 1,000 more doctor's appointments than you've ever been to in your entire lives. But other than that, nothing's really probably changed in your life up until this point, until you end up going to the hospital that one last time, and then the baby is delivered and you bring her home.
Yeah, it's actually weird when your wife holds the kid for the first time and you realize that 5 minutes ago that baby was on the inside. That just like my mind still can't process that. It's just insane.
Were you jealous that she got to hold it first?
Actually, no. Because they kind of like right after you have the baby, they kind of just set them on you because they're like, oh, hey, it's a baby. Bah.
Well, they have, don't they have to? Isn't there a certain thing where the baby and the mom's heartbeat, and it's kind of like a synchronicity thing where it's called
it's the familiarity, I think.
There's
too.
There's something it's called though. I don't remember what it's called. I don't know if they call it like the contact.
Skin to skin.
Yeah, it's the skin to skin
it's
contact.
the skin to skin contact, and yeah, most of the time, unless there's something wrong, the doc, or if you ask them not to, the doctors will put the baby right on to like the mother's chest right away.
Yeah.
So Keller,
I jokingly told Allie that I called dibs on holding the baby
see,
first.
that's what I was totally gonna make a joke about, and that's why I knew that. I was like, that's why. Were you jealous? So Keller, did you and Allie do like the pre-parenting classes or anything, or did you not do any of that?
We didn't. We would have if they'd have been. With COVID, there aren't like really any available like in-person stuff, and so with them being being virtual or online, just never really did get to them. But Allie's been reading What to Expect When You're Expecting and a lactation book and another book about babies. I think it's called Shit No One Tells You or something like that.
Nice.
But I should probably be reading more, but I'm not.
So I think at this point, I want to ask Keller a bunch of questions about him right now, and then Christian, you can kind of say how you relate, like how you went through it when you were expecting. So then after that, I'll go to you, Christian, to tell you what your experience is 9 months out. That sounds weird, not like out of the womb, but like 9 months removed from that doesn't help either. Your child's 9 months old now. So
I do want to say we didn't do any classes or anything. I didn't read anything. Most of that was intentional.
He was also awkward around our nieces and nephews. I will say that. Not like super awkward, but like you even said like when it's my baby it'll be fine, but like you'd sit like this so you didn't have to hold a kid. I'm over there playing with one of them. Like you just were further removed from it.
It's completely different when you're in a room full of like babies and people are like, oh hey, here, take this kid, and you're just like, no.
Yeah,
like,
but we'll get to that. Anyway,
I just want to tell you that like the fact that you're not reading stuff, like you're not gonna kill the kid. Knock on wood. Like bluntly, like it doesn't matter what you read. Like the mom has it so much worse. And again, that's just
we'll get to
it.
A harsh truth. Like it doesn't matter how many things you read because you're just gonna react and everything's gonna be fine. But okay.
All right, so Keller, first of all, how is your wife doing? Is she in the same mind space as you? Is she sounds like she's definitely preparing much more, but she's about to go through a little bit more than you. So how is she doing 2 weeks out?
More than me.
Yeah. I was saying that sarcastically. I know how this works.
You don't. We'll get to that.
How is Allie? How is she? Is she super excited? Is she nervous? Is it a combination? What?
I think she's just ready to be done.
Yeah.
It's funny. So February birthdays in our family. Allie's birthday was yesterday. My grandpa's birthday is the 10th. My mom's birthday is the 11th. And my sister's birthday is the 14th.
Yeah.
And so
this podcast will actually come out about like the 17th. So we're recording it about a week early.
So yeah, like at the beginning, Allie was like, yeah, a lot of people will go like a week late with their first child. So if she could just like stay in there a little bit longer, she can get into March and we wouldn't have so many February birthdays. Fast forward to a couple weeks back, she was like, screw this. I don't care if I give birth on my birthday. Because she's just really uncomfortable
Yeah.
all the time. Really uncomfortable and just ready to be done.
So do you guys have a day of plan? Like as soon as her water breaks, do you have an action plan? You know, like you make sure your keys are in the spot, you got your bags packed. What do you guys have in mind for your day?
I mean, it'll all depend on where we are when her water breaks or when her contractions get to the point that we need to bring her in. But Allie's got part of a bag packed. But our doctor was like, if your water breaks, you don't have to rush. You have a little bit of time to get stuff packed, get stuff together, collect yourselves, and then get to the hospital. So we've got like all of the essentials packed basically. We've got the car seat in the car already. So we're ready that way. We've got her outfit picked out for when she leaves the hospital. The baby's outfit, not Allie's.
Let me guess, it's a Minnesota Vikings shirt.
No,
Darn,
it isn't.
Thank God.
I'm surprised. Dang.
No, that'll be a little bit later. She's got little
second day.
She's got little Vikings booties, so
Nice.
she'll be wearing them quickly.
Christian, let's go to you. What was your guys' day of plan?
I don't even remember now. I know we had a bag packed, kind of ready the whole time. Libby had posted several things on Instagram and stuff to get recommendations, and obviously between her sisters and then our siblings, she had pretty good recommendations for people who've had kids in the last 20 years. Otherwise, I mean, the hospital gives you pretty much everything you need, whether it's aftercare for her or for the baby. And with COVID, obviously, we were a little bit more restricted on who could bring us stuff. But I mean, there's always people that bring stuff. So it's not the end of the world. But we pretty much had like phone chargers and outfits for Elliot and stuff for Libby. But I had to have stuff too, like make sure you have. I took my Nintendo Switch and played Animal Crossing for like 10 of the hours. Libby was in labor. She's sitting there like dying and crying in pain. I'm just sitting there like, ooh.
Yeah, you're texting me like, can you open your island so I can sell my turnips? I'm like, no, man. Yeah. Like, don't you have better things to do right now?
But at that point, you really don't, because it's just a waiting game. And like, we didn't have anyone else on the floor at the time. So we had all the nurses we needed. And so we had so much attention that I literally had nothing to do. So like, make sure you have an iPad or something or a laptop. We watched Netflix for a while. I mean,
you guys had a false alarm too, didn't you? Where you went early to the hospital before you thought she was in labor, but she wasn't?
No. So at one point we went during the day. She thought something was wrong. And so then, I mean, there's just 1,000 different things where they hook you up to a machine to see the baby's heart rate and the oxygen levels and stuff of you and the baby. And when we thought it was a false alarm, actually, we went to the hospital at 4:30 in the morning. She had been up for a while already, and like, yeah, we'll probably send you home. And then after observation for a while, the doctor had been there for the day. It wasn't our doctor on call. It was a younger guy. And he's like, you know what? You're doing 2 days. Baby's healthy. Let's just deliver it now. We're like, okay. So like our false alarm turned into, we're going to induce you. You're going to have your baby today.
Nice. That seems like that would be crazy. Like, I don't have 2 more days. Like, what? I was planning on 2 more days.
But it's good at the same time, because again, it forces your hand, and it's just kind of that harsh reality of, I have to do this. I'm going to do this. And the way I justified it in my head was, sure, this baby was an accident, but like,
surprise.
Even if we had planned to do this if we had planned to do this in a year or 2, what's preventing me from just dealing with it now than in 2 years? Like, that gives me 2 more years of being young to have kids versus like waiting 2 more years. Like,
but
you're wrinkling your nose.
Yeah, because like, we'll probably have a kid eventually, but I'm in no hurry to do that. So like, if I
No,
want to
I
wait
meant
2 or 5
I
more
meant
years, I'm not trying to have a Philip Rivers sized family or anything. So like, I'm fine with like just getting one solid kid, and we'll be good with it.
I I don't mean it in the sense of
Solid
like
kid, like a
yeah
chair.
Well, Christian's making
yeah
it
We've
sound
got
like it's a
nice
race
chair over
against the
there. We just need one.
Christian's making it sound like it's a
it's
race against the clock, where it's like, oh God, we
no
only have about 10 good years left. We got to hurry up and like just
I
pop them
I
out.
mean it I mean it in the sense of I took it as not a bad thing. I took it as a good thing. Like again, why would I
You're talking
in
about the
2 years?
surprise of having a child.
Yeah, in 2 years, I wouldn't have been more prepared than I am now. But now I have to just accept it and be excited about it because it's not going away. Like
Well,
it's a
yes.
good thing.
And like what's nice about it and what I kind of think of it as, that's 2 extra years you have with her than you were planning on.
Right. Or two
You've got
years
you
earlier, she'll be out of my house when I'm in my 50s and can have like an adult life.
and you get more time with your thinking way far in the future, assuming it happens. Like you get more time with your grandkids too.
You guys are just way ahead
Yeah.
of me. I'm just like, what's for lunch tomorrow? And you guys are like, what will my grandkids be like? I just,
But it's true because like your perspective is forced and everything time just changes. Like the fact that I have a 9-month-old child right now is insane. Like again, pregnancy is so much wait time that as soon as the baby comes, every week is something new. And by the time they hit like 2, 3, 4 months, like things happen so fast. Like my kid learned how to crawl, talk, and got a tooth in the same like 3 days. So like everything happened so fast that like now it is kind of like, okay, when do we have the next kid? Because you have to plan 9 months into the future. So like this next one hopefully won't be an accident. Mistake, not mistake. Surprise. Uh,
we were
um,
surprises. I mean, that was just the
I
nice
know,
way mom told us that we were accidents.
but you're implying
We
that
were
having a
blessings.
surprise, you're implying that having a surprise baby is a bad thing.
No,
To
I'm
us,
not.
it was
No,
a
no, no,
shock.
no, 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 no. I'm not implying that. I'm implying that you make it sound like it's a race against the clock in terms of how old you are. That's how I interpreted it at first. I now understand that I misunderstood what you were saying. I get it now, but no, I don't think that at all.
Well, I think it's, again, it's
I just would have tried
kind
harder
of,
to avoid the surprise.
yeah, but at that point too, I mean, we'd already been together so long and like we kind of knew sooner than later we wanted to have a kid. So whether it was directly planned or not,
So
like
you weren't really trying to not have a kid either.
we weren't really gonna be surprised
We
if it
weren't
happened.
not gonna try to have a kid. All right, we're moving on. We're gonna just go back and forth. Christian, I want you to give your like what your mindset was at the same time, like where Keller is now. That way, when we go to you to tell us about your experience after having the kid and your experiences now, Keller can then ask questions and kind of see what he thinks his experience might be. So, for both of you, what was your biggest fear and what was your like what were you most excited for? Just day of the kids delivered. Let's say you get home. What was the first what were you
Like,
excited for? Like was it to like see her for the first time, or I mean, I guess I don't know if I'm asking if it's to have a child in general, or what was the very first thing you were excited for and scared as hell about?
I think that in general, you're just excited about everything. Like just saying that is weirdly like making me feel emotional, which is really weird. But like you just everything happens so fast, and then all of a sudden, like you're in a hospital room for 14 hours or whatever, and then all of a sudden you have a kid. And like to say you have a kid, it just feels weird because it just seems like something your older siblings are supposed to be doing, or it seems like something your aunts and uncles are doing. There's just, it's kind of that big defining moment, like getting married, when all of a sudden you realize you're not a kid anymore. Like, I feel like we should still be in high school or we should still be in college. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, just kidding. We're almost 30. We have a kid on the way. Like,
A cat.
all of us are married, a cat, a bunch of tattoos, whatever. Like, it's that first real sense of like responsibility.
Cheese.
even more so than like having a dog or a cat or a house. Like this is such a big defining moment in your life. And so once that happens and you have the kid, you're just like, holy shit, like this is life now. And not in a bad way, it's in a really good way. But like then you start to think, like my biggest thing was wanting to hear her laugh or her smile. Like at first they can kind of smile, but it's just a reaction. It's not like an actual like conscious thing. But once they start to smile for real, and once like you can actually hear their laugh, like now I want to hear her voice. She's saying some words, but like she's obviously not like forming full like sentences or anything. But it there's no one thing that I was super excited for. And it was kind of weird too, because everyone says like in that moment you're like, oh, I've never loved anything so much and I've waited my whole life for this. I didn't have that, and I felt bad that I didn't have that. But it's just because there's so much going on. I just needed a process. Like there's so much happening. You see so much stuff happen to your significant other in that moment. And like, seriously, you're going to be in shock. But like, I don't think there was any one thing I was excited for, but I was mostly excited and very happy that Libby made it through healthy. The baby made it through healthy. And then from there, you kind of relax and you just kind of ease into it. But it's definitely different. But again,
what were you scared of?
Everything. But
okay.
Again, I think you're supposed to be. And
so you're excited and scared of everything.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's one reason why I didn't want to specifically look into anything, because I didn't really want to know what I had to look forward to or fear. And I would rather have just figured it out.
Keller, what are you most excited for, and what's your biggest fear with this whole experience you're about to go through?
The unknown.
Yeah, the unknown. I'm excited to like just hold her and like sing to her and read to her. Like I'll go into the nursery and we've got our glider in there, and there are times where I'll just like turn off the light and just like sit in there and like rock in the chair, and I'll feel really peaceful. I'm just excited to like spend time with her and just kind of have those moments. Something that's always kind of freaked me out about becoming a parent is the thought that you could do everything right and do everything in your power to like raise your kid to be correct, or raise your kid correctly and be a good human and everything, and you could still fail at that, if that makes sense. Because I've known like people in high school who their parents are wonderful people. They from the outside looked like they did a really good job, but their kid is just
stuff.
Yeah. Know a lot of those people. But I mean, that's kind of the whole, I mean, that's free will, right? I mean, you can do so much up to a certain point, right. But then it's kind of like what you both have said about not doing a ton of preparing to have the kid. It's kind of like just letting the kid figure it out for themselves. And I think there's a lot that happened between me and Christian and our parents. Like if we wanted a car, we had to figure out how to get a car, or we had to get a job, or we had to figure out a way to get through college. Like there's so much stuff that I get that has to be terrifying to be like, you can only do so much and your kid's got to figure it out. But at the same time, there's a lot to show for that, because I would not be in the position I'm in right now in my life if I didn't have to figure out that shit on my own. Never would have. There's like, I don't even know what I would be doing if it was just like, oh, because you know people that have had all that stuff handed to them and tried to be figured out for them. And those people are way worse off than the people that I know that have had to be like, oh, yeah, if you want to go to college, get good grades and do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, where are we at? COVID. How did COVID affect the day of for you, Christian and Keller? What do you know about the COVID precautions that you will be facing here in a couple of days, given we're at very different stages? Christian, you were at the very beginning of COVID, kind of like May, and then Keller, you're getting towards the end, but COVID's worse now than it was in May, actually, relatively speaking. So Christian, you go first. But I know some of it because you're my brother. But tell everybody else.
I mean, first of all, I just want to say, like, now, obviously, I mean, most of the medical personnel have been vaccinated. So, like, I would way rather have a kid in 2 weeks than I would have in May. I mean, everything shut down. I mean, we got married the last week of February. So everything hit like 2 weeks after that, dead center of March. And so at that point, we're 8 months and kind of freaking out. Like, are we going to get this and die? Are the hospitals going to be full? Like, everything was just so up in the air, and like the news made it sound like everything was a total dumpster fire, and like literally everyone was just going to catch it and die at once. And so our hospital had restrictions of one visitor per or one companion per person, so obviously that being the spouse. Couldn't have any visitors. People could bring us stuff to the front door and the nurse would go get it. So I actually had my mom bring us Jimmy John's for lunch while Libby was in labor. So then the nurses went and got it for us from the front door. But other than that, literally we had FaceTime and that was it. So I will say it was kind of nice. A lot of the nurses, like the OB nurses and stuff we talked to before, obviously they all had the safety precautions and PPE and stuff. But they're like, honestly, I've never seen the place so clean. So that's a big perk. The fact that you can't have a bunch of random cousins and aunts and uncles that you don't like show up and be like, hey, we're here to see the baby. Like, that's really nice. So you kind of just get the moment of privacy and kind of that intimacy with your new little family. And we were there for, the policy was at least 24 hours. So she was born at 9:45 at night. And so the doctor said, we could let you go home late tomorrow night, but we'll probably another night. So you'll be here 2 nights. So we went home 2 days later. And again, it was just kind of nice. Like, you get room service essentially for free, since one, because of COVID, and two, since you're just obviously a patient there.
I like how you said free. As if having a child isn't like the most expensive thing you'll ever do.
Yeah, and actually that's something else too. Like, the medical bills weren't as expensive as I thought they'd be for a kid, but some of that just depends.
You got pretty good insurance though too, yeah.
Yeah. But I definitely think the people that we had to deal with, as far as doctors and nurses, like, you have a lot of people come in and out, do a lot of things to your wife in those labor hours. But everyone had masks and stuff on. Everyone was super nice. Like, people were still decent even during a pandemic. And I mean, obviously we know a lot of what they have to go through, but everything for us, I mean, it seemed normal because it's the only thing we know, but everything felt clean. Everything felt safe.
Keller, what about you? What have they told you to expect? What have they told you, or it's going to be a restriction, that kind of thing?
So it's the same thing. Only one person can be with her, and that'll be me. Assuming I'm not drunk in a casino half a country away.
Again.
But yeah, again. But if she,
that never happened,
as long
for
as
the record.
No, it did not.
Yet.
There's still time.
You got 2 weeks.
But no, so it'll just be me and her. And then if she tests, she'll get tested when we get there. And if she tests positive, then I can't leave the room. Like, we're both stuck in the room. We can't leave the room. We could order stuff to the hospital for delivery, and then like a nurse would go get it and bring it to us. But other than that, not a big change. But if she tests negative, then I can come and go however much I want. So if we forgot something at home or she needs something from home, I can go get it. Or if she doesn't want hospital food, I can run to McDonald's or Culver's or wherever and get her food and stuff like that. But other than that, so when we went in for the ultrasound, like is it 20-week ultrasound? Yeah, 20-week ultrasound. So leading up to it, the hospital had a policy where it could only be the person. There couldn't be anyone to go with them.
Dang.
And when we found out about it, we weren't thrilled. And our doctor and our nurse were like, yeah, we're not fans of it, because like the clinic is separate from the hospital. And so like we fought a lot over it and we haven't gotten it yet. But literally a week and a half before the ultrasound, they gave us a call and they're like, yeah, you can come in. You get one person to come with you.
Nice.
So it's like, thank goodness. And that was really awesome, because that was a really crazy experience, like in a really good way. But yeah, and then basically they said that anything that they provide for you, like in the room, like whether it's Kleenexes or diapers or wipes or whatever, because of COVID, they can't reuse any of that. So they're like, just take it all with you.
Ka-ching.
Yep. You pay for it all anyway. We took a ton of stuff. Even the blanket and everything they wrap her in, the little hat, like everything except for the bedding and something else. I was gonna say I couldn't leave the hospital room. We could leave and be on that floor, but if I left, I couldn't come back until the next morning.
But they didn't test you either, right? They just tested Libby.
No. Yep, they tested Libby.
They won't test me either. They'll just test Allie.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Fortunately, we never ran into the issue of not being allowed an appointment. Typically, they would at least let your spouse, because like that's the type of stuff you don't want to miss. I went to every appointment except for one, which was just a blood draw for her. Because even if the doctor just does the heartbeat, like every time you hear the heartbeat, you just get that sigh of relief, and you're like, oh shit, yeah, they're still alive. And like,
or like the feeling like when they're searching for it, and you're like, why haven't they found it yet? This is taking longer than last time. And then you hear it, you're like, oh, thank goodness.
It's terrifying. I was going to ask you, do you guys have to wear masks? Do you know?
When we're in the in the common areas of the hospital, we have to wear masks. But once we're in the room, we don't have to.
That's how.
And if Allie's positive, they'll be like, we would prefer if you wear a mask, but we're not going to force you to.
I know some people who've had to deliver with masks in the last even couple months, and it would be insane. Absolutely nuts.
Ugh. I wouldn't be able to do it.
Oh, just
I wouldn't be able to give birth at all.
Yeah.
Let alone in a mask.
Where's it gonna come out of?
All right. On that note, at this point, we'll take a quick break from the main conversation and we'll hop to the questions that I've been sent via Twitter. The first question: have your experiences with your kid or kids, so I guess Christian, just your kid, made you nervous or excited for another / more children?
Oh, 100% excited. So we've always planned, Libby wants somewhere between 3 and 5 kids. I'm hoping more on that lower end. She, during labor, very specifically said, I'm not doing this again. We're having 1 kid. And then about an hour after giving birth, all of a sudden they're so in love with their kid. They're like, we're doing this again. Like, it's a really funny, they just went through the most painful thing in their life. And 5 minutes later, you forget it. The only thing I can even compare that to is getting a tattoo where you're like, man, that sucked, but I would do it again.
You have one tattoo. You've never done it again.
No, I know. But I remember waking up that next morning and thinking, hey, I would go do this again, even though I remember it sucking. And so every moment, especially right now, like she's in such a fun age. Like she's always happy. I can hear right now in her little bouncer, just like laughing her head off. Like
we need a guest. We need a guest appearance from her before this is over, by the way.
Yes, okay. Please.
I'll go get her. Actually, I'll text Libby and have her bring her in because she'll go to bed before we're done. Definitely excited. It's 100%. It's a good thing. Like I always hated when people said, "Oh man, having kids is the best." It's just the best. It changes you and it makes you so soft. It's the only way I can describe it. That like even hearing him talk about how excited he is makes me have so many different emotions because you're just like, that was me, and now I know what he's about to go through, and it's the grossest, grimiest thing, but like 5 minutes later, you're just like, God, it's the best.
Did you cut the umbilical cord?
No, and actually, her umbilical cord was long enough that the doctor was going to hand it to Libby to cut.
Really?
It was that long.
That's not an umbilical cord. That's an escape rope.
Kind of.
Ugh. Okay. Sorry. I'm still immature
Also,
when it comes to this
umbilical
stuff.
Umbilical cord. I never realized what it looked like until like a week ago when Allie showed me a picture. I always imagined like in the cartoons it looks like, like the small intestine would look.
Or a piece of spaghetti.
Yeah.
It's a vein rope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like something you definitely shouldn't cut.
No, the texture of like, I was imagining it as like putting a worm on a fish hook. That sound of it just ripping. Like
gross.
Like trying to cut through it would kind of sound like that, or like, ugh.
Yeah, the doctor told me that she's gonna hand me the scissors and be like, "You have to cut this right now. Cut it here."
What if they give you a pair of like safety scissors and it just doesn't work, and you're just kind of like gnawing at it?
At first,
that would be horrifying.
It sounds horrifying. What if it's like a pair of those like scrapbook scissors where it puts a nice little triangle pattern on it? All right, next question is for Keller. Somebody asked, how did you know when you were ready to have kids? At what point were you just like, all right, it's go time?
I don't think you ever are.
No, I mean like,
I don't think you ever feel
but like,
ready.
did you and Allie have the conversation and like, all right, it's time to start trying?
Sort of. If it were up to me, we would have started. Aw.
Hey,
Ellie.
look, there's Uncle Colin.
Hi, Ellie.
Can you say hi?
Hi.
Hello.
Say hi.
She probably can't hear us.
She doesn't like us. She hates us.
A year ago, if you would have seen this image, you would have been like, no way. But now it's just like the most natural thing. And that's the best part.
Yeah, if I saw this a year ago, I'd have been like, wow, Christian got better at Photoshop.
Say hi.
Hi, Ellie. Hi.
Hi, baby. Hi. Can you say Dada? Dada? I don't think you've ever been in here.
She's like, oh.
That's you. Hey.
All these toys that I don't get to play with.
She's like, what's this Iron Man doll?
Hi. Oh, hi. Yeah, turn on my...
Keller, what were you saying? If it was up to you, what would have happened?
Oh, I was like, oh, I want to go right away.
Like as soon as you got married, you were ready?
Yeah. But Allie definitely, which I don't blame her, needed time to like be ready in her own mind and well, as ready as she could ever be, really. Oh, hello.
I have a voice.
Can you say Dada? Dada. She started to say hi and hello randomly the other day. She goes, hi. And so now when I walk out in the morning, she goes, hi, Dad.
She's like, what?
Oh, there. She's waving.
That's a wave.
Hi.
We'll take it. All right, the next question.
Oh, hello.
Oh.
Dad.
This next question is for Ellie. So the next question is mostly, I guess, for Keller because your child was more planned out. Did you try to? Let me start over. Did you have in mind what time of the year the child would be born when you started?
No.
You didn't care at all. Like I know, like my sister, when she had her first kid, she was born in October, but she was so pregnant when it was so hot outside that she was miserable. So I know some people avoid summer, some people avoid winter, or some people prefer winter, so they're pregnant during winter. You didn't have any?
No. Allie was just like, okay, this is around the time where we're gonna stop, preventing it, and
I'm gonna be in heat.
What?
She said, "This is when I'm gonna be in heat."
Yeah. And like, we weren't like trying hard. Like some people you get like on a schedule and like all of that.
The apps.
It was
and
just
everything.
more, yeah, we're gonna. She's so cute. But yeah, it was just like, we'll go, and if it happens, it happens.
Nice.
And luckily for us, it did.
I will say, planning for a second kid, like in the future, that's something that we're definitely taking into consideration. Is like, well, for one, working retail, I'm like, if we can plan it to like get me out of a Christmas or something, it'd be kind
Black
of cool.
Friday,
But
Christmas.
yeah. So I definitely think people do take that into consideration. I mean, obviously, as an accident, she wasn't, but I think in the future we'll definitely plan that better. Not that it matters, because again, it could take you 4, 6, 8 months or longer, and obviously it's all pending the right things happen at the right time.
The moon
but
and the stars aligning.
literally, I mean, there's just no saying whether it'll actually work or not, but that's definitely something I think we'll take into consideration.
All right. The last question, Kat, stop playing with my desk. The last question
That's
came
not a
from.
question.
Oh, wait.
The last question came from none other than Libby, Christian's wife,
Oh, no.
asking,
Oh, no.
"What's it like
Uh-oh.
to have the best baby mama?"
Okay, I'm gonna spin this and ask the question to him instead. Is what are you most excited to see? Like, I will say that seeing her as a mom.
This isn't your podcast. Answer the question, and then we'll go to that.
I want to twist it.
No, answer the question first, and then I'll let you twist it.
Okay, so what I'm about to say is obviously dependent on our situation, because obviously
Is this why you
not
waited for her to
everyone
leave
has
the
the
room?
same. Yes, so she doesn't hit me again. She has done such a great job with Elliot, and she stays at home now. She runs 2 businesses, but she was able to quit her job with the school system and run her businesses, so we didn't have to pay for childcare, because ultimately any money she would have been making would have just been literally paid towards childcare. So, and to be able to have her stay here and to always know who's watching our kid in our own house is great. But like, she's made life so easy for me. Like, having a kid has been so much easier, and the only thing I can obviously attest that to is how great she has been and how much work she does, whether it's just diapers or whatever. Like, to have 2 giant dogs on top of it in a house that's always a work in progress, whether it's cleanliness or remodel. Like, I probably don't tell her enough, but she does. I mean, she's so good at it, but she's also just like the best to just take care of some of that stuff, especially when I'm at work.
Okay, now you can spin it.
Okay, so what are you most excited about? It's so different, like, to see your wife pregnant. Like, for one, all the appointments you go to, the hands and fingers you see checking all the things, like, it's so gruesome on them, especially once you get to the birth. But like, I think to know that they're carrying your child is an extremely attractive thing. It's a whole different dimension to that person to be like, okay, this is the person taking this next step with me. What are you most excited to see of her with your kid? Like, whether it's just being a mom in general, or like, where's your head at when it comes to like your wife and her own baby?
I'm excited to see her become a mom. When Allie and I first met, I mean, she was 20, I was 22, 23. We were a couple of idiot college kids.
Rapscallions.
Rapscallions. A couple of idiot college kids who had nothing in their lives figured out, really. And to see where true. To see where both of us, and especially her, have come has been really, really cool. Especially when, like, you talk to like some of her friends, and they say it's weird to them that she was like the first of them to have a kid. And it's just really cool to see that, and I'm excited to see how because I know she's going to do a great job. She's a wonderful human being. So Um,
I mean, if
There's a
she can
lot
put
to
up
be
with you, she has to be.
For real though. I mean that
There's
is
a
true
special
though.
place in heaven for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I will not
away,
argue that.
and it's away from you for a while.
Yeah, I know, I'm excited because I know she's going to be amazing and she's going to love our child.
Yeah, it's insane, and it's awesome to see the growth of your wife develop as obviously a nurturing mother, but I mean, your relationship with her will be so different too, because again, the things you're about to witness physically and mentally elevate everything to a way higher level in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
So I assume it was something that both of you guys discussed with your significant others, that yes, you wanted to have children way early on in the relationship.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think we probably did before we were even actually dating. Just kind of like, in that talking phase, just like, oh, hey, what's your future look like type of a thing.
Yeah,
But
like it's like a
yeah.
20 question type thing for
yeah.
most people. Like, oh, because
What would their names be? Yeah.
that I think is a little too far, because that's just
me.
I'm just saying, like, it can be a huge issue if somebody doesn't want kids and one of them does.
Yeah, I still think it's, especially if you're going to date with any future, I think it's something you
With any
100% talk
future.
about. Well, I mean, there's people who just date because it's fun and you just want to mess around. But like, once you are with someone who you actually expect to have a future with, it's 100% probably one of the first 10 questions to ask. Like, I know a couple people who are in longer term relationships and they're not sure what for sure the kid situation is, and that kind of dictates their next move. Is something that I didn't want to ever have to deal with, like to date someone for 4 years or 5 years or whatever and just be like, oh, I love you, but I want kids. Like, then all of a sudden you have to make that decision, and that's not necessarily fair to yourself to do. Like, I would never want that decision.
Nice. So the next question, we're going back to the main questions, but some of those questions that had been asked on social media actually covered some of the next parts of this conversation, so that's good. The next question that I have for both of you is how, I guess this is mostly for Christian first. We're kind of into the Christian portion. How has having a kid affected your mental health in terms of anxiety and in terms of, like, are you just worried about the kid being safe? I know you guys have limited visits or like required masks when people visit, when I come over or whatever. So how has having a kid now changed kind of just the way your mind works?
I feel like this could be a whole podcast episode.
And it probably will be after Keller has his child.
Yeah. Yeah, COVID's been tough because we've pretty much limited it to like our parents. Obviously, you've seen her a couple times, and then like our other siblings have. Like,
I've seen her several. I mean, I've seen her several times. I've probably seen her 10 times.
But not to the point where we'll come make a day trip and like hang out and be like, hey, here's my kid, hang out with her or whatever.
I mean, I make the day trip. Let's be real.
Well,
That's neither here nor there. But
as far as my mental health, I think like where Keller's at now, I was definitely anxious. I mean, I'm always anxious, but like you're a different kind of anxious when you're about to go through something like that. But it's kind of a quiet anxiousness. Like it's a different one because again, you have to do it, which kind of takes away some of the anxiety, but you're still, to me, it was a lot of like, is she gonna have a C-section? Is Libby gonna be okay? Is the baby gonna go into distress and there's gonna be an emergency of some sort? Like, there's so many physical things that can go wrong that I was pretty concerned with. The quote I said earlier about like having a kid earlier in your life so you don't have to worry about so much shit later on. Like, I do think about that. I think it's a pretty good representation. Like, I still have my many anxieties, but like I do think of things for Elliot in the future, like obviously school shootings is a huge one, especially in America. Like, does my kid have to have a bulletproof vest? Do we want to homeschool? Like, what is things going to look like as far as that? Obviously, the political nature of the country has been such a shock over the last year, 6 months.
2
so
months.
like, Well, yeah. So like what kind of things will education really be, especially with COVID and other pandemics like coming up? So there's definitely still anxiety, but it's more so the unknown, not any one thing in particular. But I will say that as far as mine, like my focus has definitely shifted to her more so than myself. So like I feel like most of my fears are more rational than irrational, which a lot of anxiety is. But yeah, it definitely is different. It's more so like, oh no, does she have a fever? She coughed one time. Like you don't realize how much babies cough because it's a reflex, but it's also the only thing they can do. So we definitely have called the pediatrician a fair share of times, or asked friends who've had kids and stuff too to like kind of calm our nerves a little bit. But there's definitely new anxieties that have arisen with her, but they've probably replaced more than I had before.
Keller, do you have anything to add? I know that question's more pointed at an after experience, but
Right. Yeah, like the stuff Christian was saying about things that could possibly like go wrong with the delivery and everything. That's something I would have expected myself to be a lot more anxious about, but I'm surprisingly like it'll be fine.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's more because there are times where I think of it as people a lot less capable than us have been able to do this.
Yeah.
And it's been going on since, for millions of years now.
You're not wrong.
So
actually, that's how I justified it too, actually. And multiple points was like, well, or even just be a parent in general. Like, I know the scumbags from high school, and they're like parents now. I'm like, oh heck, if they can do it, we're fine. Like,
yeah,
we
exactly.
have a house, we have jobs, we have a food, like everything. Like, yeah,
A lot of stability.
yeah.
Yeah. Keller, do you
Stability
think
is underrated.
Keller, do you think part of that like you not worrying is you telling yourself to not worry, but as soon as that kid is born, you're going to be worrying? Like, do you think it's your way of keeping yourself from freaking out right now? I don't know. I'm saying I could see it either way. I feel like I would feel unusually calm right now because if I know I start freaking out now, it's not going to stop. But if I'm like, no, it'll be fine. But then that day I'd be like, oh no.
Right. I think part of it has been like the distraction of like the past couple months, work has been insanely busy, and
you just moved.
And we just moved, and last semester just ended at the end of December, and
oh yeah, because you're still
all of that
classes.
and all of that kind of piling together. I've spent a lot more time worrying about school and work than I have, just because I think there's more I can control about school and work than I can with the pregnancy. So it's a lot easier for me to focus on and worry about the things I can control. And it's definitely been weird that I haven't been as anxious with the pregnancy as I would normally think I would be.
I'm honestly surprised by your answers. I thought you'd be kind of flipping out a little bit.
I think you're right though, where like the distraction is so necessary because there's literally nothing the guy can do until the baby is born. Like literally, I mean, you can take her to the doctor, and the doctors, like in our experience, the doctors and the nurses were so nice, and Libby was so like in her head about every little thing because you just don't know what to expect your first time, especially. But like the doctors and stuff made me feel calm. They made me feel like if something is wrong, then we handle it. Like you don't anticipate something going wrong, you just handle it when it does go wrong. And so I think being distracted is great, and I remember trying to stay as busy as I possibly could too, because literally it's just wasted energy otherwise, because there's nothing you can do until that baby's born. And like same with, like you said, not being afraid of like the C-section and stuff. I remember that too. Like, I remember it being in the back of my head, but remembering while we were there, like, these people are professionals. They do this all the time. If something happens, we're here. Like, we're not in the back of a taxi and the foreign speaking taxi
Casino.
driver is trying to deliver the baby with newspaper. Like, yeah, or,
Right.
you know, so like, it's kind of that there's major relief to all the bad thoughts because you know you're going somewhere you're supposed to go. Like, if something goes wrong, where else could you possibly go? So
Right.
it is reassuring. And the anxiety, I guess, to me was more like, is my kid gonna be okay, and like, when do I get to hang out with her? Like,
Mhm.
not is my wife gonna survive this or be okay at the end?
Right. And yeah, the doctors have been definitely helping out, because I mean, Lila will have the hiccups so much, and so Allie was worried about it, so she Googled it.
They get hiccups a lot, like
That was-
a lot.
That was the wrong thing to do,
Oh.
and
Yeah.
because apparently hiccups could be a sign that like the umbilical cord is like crimped or like around the neck or something. And I kept telling her, just message the doctors.
Yep.
Just message if you have a question, just message them. And she like would always wait until like she was so freaked out that she was like, okay, I have to message them.
Yeah.
And so the next time we went in, the doctor was like, yes, please just message us. That's what we're here for. We want you to message. We want to hear from you. We don't want you Googling things.
Yeah, I bet.
And I was
Yeah.
just like, I looked at her joking, and I was just like, see?
But at the same
Yeah.
time, what if there was something wrong and she did Google it? Like, I feel like there has to be a balance and a peace of mind, because it's no different than if you get like a rash all of a sudden or a weird looking bruise. Like, you're gonna Google it, and you sometimes.
Yeah.
But there's people like us where like if something if you don't think worst case scenario, you're not going to take care of it. You're just like, oh, it's just a bruise, it'll go away. But somebody else could be like, that could be a blood clot, that could be
When
all
it
sorts
comes
of
to
things.
pregnancy and another life, though, especially your own kids, I will say that has changed for me. Like, I won't make a phone call to save my life, maybe only to save my life, but like with this, I would 100% call the doctor. And that was something that Libby, she hated to feel like she was being annoying, but it's really their job. Like, they've done this 100,000 times for 100,000 different people, whether it is a hiccup question, because like they get hiccups a lot and they say it's the weirdest feeling, and again, I can't imagine, but so like not being too proud to just call the doctor or something, like you said, it could be a blood clot. Like, stuff gets so serious for mom and baby so fast that sometimes you just got to call and say, hey, is this normal? Especially with your first kid, I think that's probably extremely common. And again, this is all just based on our experience, where fortunately nothing did go wrong. But we went to the hospital a couple times we didn't need to, whether it was to have them check on everything, because again, there's nothing better than that peace of mind of hearing your kid's heartbeat or something like that, when you just all of a sudden just like, oh, everything's fine, baby had hiccups or something. Like, sometimes it is something that small, but like, I didn't know babies got hiccups before this either, and it's just bizarre.
And like something that Allie's run into has been that, like, because a lot of the times the doctor's like, if there's something wrong, most mothers, like, they just know.
Yeah.
And they tell you that. And Allie's thinking,
Can you bring her here?
well, okay, what if I think it's not? What if I don't get that feeling? What if I don't think it's that wrong, but it is, and because I've never done this before.
Right.
And she just kind of gets in her head that way too. It's just because she's never done it before.
Is it bedtime for Ellie?
Yeah. And I mean, that's something too. Like, I know it's one thing to always say like good night to your wife, but like to say it to your kid is just the best, because in a couple Libby's like, in a couple hours, like, I'll look at the baby monitor and be like, oh man, I want to see my kid. Like, it's the most bizarre thing because you're just seriously like, there's so much time. You're like, man, I wish you would go to sleep so I can just go do literally anything else. And then it gets to a point like, dang, I miss my kid. Like, when can I get here again?
Can I wake her up?
Yeah, literally. I've said that to her before. Taking a nap. I'm like, can I go get her? Can you say bye? Say night night.
Night, honey.
Bye.
All right, so my next question. After having a kid or expecting to have a kid, how did that change like your financial situation? Did you just start thinking like, oh God, I got to pay for braces and a wedding and college and all this stuff? Like, did you start to think, okay, I need to get my shit together and we need to make sure we can afford to have a baby. We need to make sure they'll have everything they need. Like, did you go through any? I know Keller has a financial advisor because the guy calls me 17 times a day. Like,
Just answer the phone.
if he left me a message, maybe I would. I don't even know it's him calling. But point being, like, you're clearly working to get your financials in order, so you're taking that step. But has your mindset changed? Christian, I know yours has a little bit, but how are you trying to plan for your future and your kids' future in terms of providing?
I'd say in the short term, having a kid's not as expensive as I thought it would be. Not that they're cheap, because they're definitely not. And the amount of money Libby spends on bows and clothing is absurd. But I definitely think our perspective has changed. Even just in the last couple weeks, we've been taking a really serious look at our money, and we had to, especially when she decided not to go back to work after having the baby. Obviously, her businesses are doing great, but it's still different than getting a guaranteed paycheck, like when you're based on like the wedding industry or now her jewelry business. It does definitely make you prioritize things. We're very seriously looking at like our next move as far as a house and if we want to move out of town and stuff. So we've taken a pretty serious look at that. And she just recently set up a 401k or a Roth IRA with a financial planner. We just got life insurance. So like stuff like that definitely makes you think of finances for the future if something is to happen to us, especially with COVID. That was kind of the biggest motivator, was like, all right, if one of us gets COVID and dies, how are we going to pay for our debt? How are we going to pay for this and this? So like life insurance is kind of just, it seems basic after having a kid, but I definitely have stopped buying so much random stuff. But I will say, like, a lot of this
Bullshit.
stuff that you as I'm streaming on my new computer, I will say a lot of this stuff that we needed for her, you get from your baby showers, and that type of stuff. She didn't even use her crib until she was almost 8 months old, and that was because we kept her in a bassinet that long. But like, a lot of that stuff is so unnecessary at first, especially like you don't really need a changing table if you have one of the pack and plays that has a changing table on top, or like we change her on the floor most of the time or whatever. So there are things that if and when we have a second kid, we will know whether we need to buy a second one of, or if it's something we can reuse or stuff like that. But so there are things that I think I could change to make more affordable. And I think we haven't started to think like school and a wedding. We're trying to get our debt cleared first, and then we'll kind of take the next step as far as like saving money. We did open her a savings account, so like every birthday and Christmas and stuff, when we get $20 from grandpa or whoever, like we can put that into an account for her. So we have done some things, maybe they're basic, but it's something that we definitely started to think about. But I think the bigger thing was to get our money under control for ourselves, and then we'll start to focus on stuff for her in the future.
Keller, anything to add?
We're kind of in the same boat. It's also kind of hard to tell because, I mean,
You're
until we
you're
have
stable. Yeah, right. You're stable right now.
Yeah, and I mean, until she's actually here, for me at least, it's hard to actually like see, okay, this is how much this is going to cost. Okay, this is exactly how much we're going to be spending on this. So I mean, we're definitely and moving out into the country, it's made it a lot easier to not eat out as much and buy more groceries, which is helping save money. And I think it'll come a lot clearer, I think, once I've finished college and once we have the child here and are actually paying for diapers, and we have so many diapers. It's insane.
That's a good
thing. We have so many. Yes, it's an amazing thing. My mom started buying diapers like once, like every other week since we told her we were expecting.
Nice.
And so we've got a ton of diapers, we've got a ton of wipes, which is awesome.
I remember our older brother told us that pretty much everybody buys you everything you need for the first year of that kid's life.
He did a diaper party instead of a like she did a bridal shower, and he was going to do a dadchler party, and he did a diaper party instead, and they didn't need diapers for a year. We didn't have that because of COVID. We barely even had a shower. People still sent stuff kind of virtually. I will say the cool thing with diapers is like through Target and Walmart, I think you can exchange sizes if you have a box that you don't need, because like they grow so fast. Like you don't need newborn diapers really at all. But something I look for weekly still is like the deals on formula and diapers and stuff through Target, and
Costco.
get gift cards every time. Yeah, or Costco. Like spend $100 to get the $20 gift card and just stock up every time they do that, because it's like 2 or 3 times
right.
But there are, especially like he said, Costco, and like we switched formula really fast. She didn't breastfeed, and so we switched from like the fancy Similac to like the Target version, which is the exact same thing without the name brand, and like the baby had no reaction, which again some babies will, but that's like $10 or $20 saved per thing of formula. So, and now she can eat normal food and then like baby food, so things change anyway. But yeah, you'll become a pro at bulking up and then saving stuff, because you'll figure out what's even necessary or how quickly it becomes necessary.
Right, for sure.
So since Keller, I know you just moved, Christian, you're talking about moving, and this really mostly applies to Keller unless you move out of town where you're currently at. But when you moved, did you consider school districts as part of the house you bought and where you bought it?
A little bit. But where we're at, there are, I think, 4 or 5 different school districts that have buses that pick kids up.
Nice.
In the mornings.
Is Minnesota a school? Is Minnesota a school choice state where you get to send your kid where you want, or do you have to go within the district?
I think you have to go within the district, but
you can always apply to go out of that too.
Yeah.
And different states have very strict, like you have to basically petition the school board or something to be able to get your kid out of one and into another, or there's a wait list. I know there's all sorts of hoops to jump through, but I didn't know if that was something you took into consideration.
More applies to like athletics stuff and being eligible to participate in athletics. But yeah, obviously, so there's the Lester Prairie High School is like 3 blocks away, but then a couple miles away is one school, couple miles or about 15 miles away is another school, 20 miles away is another school, and they're all sending buses to come to the town. So and they remind me of like small town school districts, like we were used to growing up.
Yeah.
Or at least I was.
Well,
I guess
go ahead.
I haven't taken that into consideration. We're thinking about moving to a bigger city. So, that's definitely something we should consider. But, being
1,000%, especially if you're moving where I think you might move 10,000%, because even when we bought our first house, we made sure it was in a specific district, because if it was in the neighboring district, the house would not have sold. nobody wanted to live in that district. It's a super
Yeah,
important thing, whether or not
I
you're having
think
kids.
we're
Even I mean, it's an important factor in home buying.
I think where we're thinking of moving, I think we'll be fine, kind of regardless. But yeah, it's definitely something to take into consideration in a bigger city than where we are now, because obviously there's more choices. But
Mm.
um,
You're not going to be my
yeah,
neighbor, are you?
not directly.
What does that mean?
I mean, there's no plan as of 8:38 right now for us to be moving anytime soon, but it's it's starting to roll that way.
Interesting. All right, we're getting towards the end here. Really, I have a couple more questions, and I'm really curious about these. Christian, we kind of touched on with you, like how your view of kids changed after you've had your own. Like you just feel more familiar with them, like you get it now. Keller, how are you with kids at this point? And I'm sure it'll change, but do you like kids? Like, or do you have issues? Like, do you hold babies when you get the chance, or like, do you just kind of shy away and like, no, I'll wait until this one's got my blood?
What an
Simba.
eloquent with that.
Came out a little bit weird, but we still got there. You know what I meant.
Yes. No, I love holding babies.
So you're already good with kids.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Growing up, I mean, I was on my dad's side, I was the oldest of the cousins. On my mom's side, I was the second oldest of the cousins. So I was always around small children, and
Well, and you have
was
younger
always holding them.
siblings, right?
See, I
Yeah.
wonder if that's part of it too. I mean, us being the babies, like we were the youngest cousins
Yep.
until, I mean, our closest cousin is what, 15 years younger than us? Like,
And that lives near us, yeah.
yeah. And so I think that might be part of it too. Like growing up, we just
That is
didn't
true.
have little kids around. And so,
Mhm.
and then we were still young enough that when they started to have kids, like our uncles and even our siblings, we were just still young enough, or it just
We were like
seemed
20
out of
when
place.
we were like 20 when our first niece was born.
Yeah, 19.
But we were never really
Um,
around babies before. Like I babysat a couple of times, but like other
right.
than
And
that,
like
our
when
little cousins, yeah, you're right. Versus Keller being exposed to what you have
siblings,
2 younger brothers and a younger sister.
Younger brother and 2 younger
Dang it,
sisters.
I screwed it up.
like even when we had our first niece, like I loved watching her grow up, and like every time we'd see her, like to see that growth and stuff, and she'd be like so happy to see us, and like it was cool to see life through, or to see life grow,
Mhm.
even if it was my sister's kid, but like to again have it be your own, everything is 100 times cooler because it's just like
We each have
I
the
don't have a
animals
kid.
coming at us right now.
I can go at my dogs.
Abe's a good boy.
Yeah, you're a good boy, aren't you, bud? Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't even think of
He's
that.
been
That's
a lot more. He's been a lot more uptight lately. I
Does
think
he,
he knows.
does he cuddle? Does he cuddle with your wife more?
no, he's definitely still. I'm still his human, um, but he's definitely been more on edge lately, and we think it's because he realizes. I don't think he realizes Allie's pregnant, but he realizes there's something going on.
They can
He might
sense
know.
as soon as like 10 weeks. As soon as 10 weeks hits, they can smell the baby actually. And so like our dog Murphy would cuddle on Libby's stomach all day and just sit there and like put his head on her belly. And
Mhm.
they can definitely sense it. But the moment of coming home, we had our dogs boarded when we went in um to have the baby, and so to go get them, and like that introduction is so genuine, and it's just
Mhm.
it's a cool moment too that we made sure to record. And I've talked to a couple coworkers since then too, where like introducing your kid to your dogs or cats or whatever is just, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure we're not really worried about Abe. I mean, he'll be. I think he'll be super excited. We're a little more worried about the cat
Yeah,
because the cat is he's he is Allie's baby
Yeah.
currently. He is such a baby. It's crazy. And so
Frank.
like Frank. Yep. Frank always needs attention. If we're gone a little too long, he's all up in our business. So it'll be interesting to see how he reacts to not being the center of attention whenever he wants anymore.
All right, the last question then is, Christian, do you have any advice for Keller? Or Keller, do you have any questions for Christian?
I mean, I'll let him start in that regard.
But like, I mean, it's like you don't know what you don't know at this point, so you might not have any questions. But I'm hoping the point of this podcast episode was I don't know anything about having a baby from start to finish. I don't know. I mean, I know how it works, but I don't know anything about the other logistics. So I was hoping that Keller and Christian would be able to shed some light, like what one went through and what one's going through, and maybe hearing his side of it. Since you know him as a person too, it would help kind of alleviate some anxiety that you're having. Maybe form a connection with somebody that you can ask questions to, which there's no shortage of people who have babies that you know that you can ask questions to, but everybody has different experiences. And when you know somebody's on a similar mental wavelength in terms of intelligence and logic and mental health and all that, maybe that would help. But so if you don't have any questions, then Christian, just fire away with advice. What
I guess
your top piece of advice for him? Let's not go crazy.
Yeah. So I think the thing that I was least expecting of, or the only thing, like when we were in school and stuff, and people would talk about like giving birth, it does not paint even the tiniest square of reality in a painting. Like it is so different.
It's different than that video we had watched in 6th grade.
Yeah, so like that's
because I can't unsee that still.
Wait until it's Becca and you see your child's alien head coming out. So I was actually holding one of Libby's legs. They do this all in the room you're in the whole day. Like I always thought you went to a different room. They literally bring out a tarp and like a 5-gallon bucket and deliver them like they are a farm animal. And then they mop the floor and you sleep in that room 2 hours later. Like it is the craziest thing. The fact that there's pretty much 2 births. Like you go through, they literally have an afterbirth. So like when they're cleaning up the kid and stuff, the doctor is still working on your wife, like getting her cleaned up, stitches, whatever, on top of like pulling out the rest of the umbilical cord. And like she literally has to deliver the placenta, which I was like, what the flying F word is this? Like everything is just so different.
Yeah, we didn't realize the placenta had to be birthed until like
Keller's
a week
like, I didn't
ago.
know any of this. What the?
Yeah. So that was a lot of the stuff I wasn't expecting. Obviously the recovery is kind of savage for the ladies. We just get to hold the adorable babies and like feed them bottles, but like the women go through obviously quite the recovery process. I think within the hour though, like an hour after everything was done, they take the epidural out and literally Libby was walking around. So like the fact that you literally go from like a human inside of you and all these wires and shit sticking out of you to no more IV, no epidural, nothing, and you're just a normal person again, like is completely crazy. Again, that's where like that respect and like holy fuck, women are strong and like so much cooler than we are. Like you just look at
100%.
I mean,
so
I know
differently.
that. And I don't have a kid.
I know, and it seems so cliched. Like women are strong, but seriously, it is the craziest process. My respect for Libby as a person, but also as a mother, just jumped through the roof at that moment because you're just like, I would have passed out 9 hours ago, 14 hours ago, whatever. The other thing, use your resources. Like, obviously, if you have questions for me, if you have questions for your nurses and doctors, like that whole process is so uniquely that one thing. I remember like 2 months after Elliot was born, Colin and our other brother were here helping us build a fence. And our older brother has a 2-year-old, and he and I sat and talked and shared our birth stories, and Colin's sitting in the corner just like like getting ready to puke, because it is such a thing. Like, you can't be mature about it until you go through it, because it is so unique. And again, there's just nothing to prepare you for that. And again, that's something that I didn't really want to be prepared for, because you kind of just have to experience it. And it's not a bad thing. Like, I would do it again in a heartbeat, most parts. I would obviously not want her to go through that again, unless we were having another child. But it is it's eye-opening. That's the only real way to put it.
In my
Yes.
defense, I think that I can understand and appreciate something for what it is and still think it's gross, regardless of my maturity level. There's all sorts of disgusting, barbaric things that happens in the human body, from just toenails and hair to all sorts of stuff. So I get it. I think I'll be mature about it when it's my turn, but I can still think it's gross.
Yeah, I mean, and again, to see everything happen to your wife, whether it is
The way you say that just makes it sound. I mean,
it is though,
but
because like, again, that's probably not something great for the podcast, but the amount of people who have to do things
yeah,
to
we
check
know.
or
Yep.
yeah,
I get it.
there's just, it's so gross and so like, I don't want to say beautiful at the same time, but I mean, it really is like the miracle of life in the most cliche sense, that like you just experience it. And then again, I would love to do this again in a month and to see where you're at, because you'll just be so excited. Like, even to just have my kid come in here, like when you're like, oh, have to have a guest appearance, it's like, yes. So I texted Libby, I'm like, bring her in, bring her in. Like, it's just so fun. And like, the amount of bad days I have are so fewer and far between than they used to be, because like, you come home and you see that face, and even now I say dad, she goes, dad, 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 dad. And like, every time she says it, and she's been saying it for like a month, I still love it every single time. Every time she laughs, or I can get her to laugh, or even when she waves, like, it's just adorable. And she actually waved for the first time to Colin when I was helping him set all this up for his podcast a couple weeks ago.
You didn't help me set up
And like,
anything.
I helped you with Discord. We demoed like 10 different times, and he didn't even catch it. And I was just sitting there like
I
freaking out,
caught
like, she
it.
just for the
No,
first
I
time.
caught it, but how was I supposed to know it was the first time?
It's just like, once you get to like, the biggest thing I was unsure of after birth was the milestones for things. There's an app called the Wonder Weeks, not sponsored, that we downloaded, and it tells you like what leap they're going through, and like, this is why they're going to be fussier, they might eat less. And so that
Is
was
that the
kind
one
of a
that
big tool.
is that the one Brendan uses?
I think so. It was a couple bucks. I think we both paid for it.
Yeah, he said
but
that it was like scary accurate and like incredibly useful, especially as
yeah,
they start to get teeth, or like you might not be able to see the teeth yet or whatever. It's
yeah. And so we did that,
What's it
and
called? Sorry.
as Keller's looking it
I-
up.
the
I don't wanna-
Wonder Weeks. Do I still have it?
Got it.
Yeah. It's this little, oh, it's not gonna focus. It's
$3.99.
yeah, it's tan. It's got a little stick figure drawing of a kid. Yes. Yep. And so that was kind of a cool one. That was recommended to us. But again, like, once they hit 2 months, they really wake up. Oh, I was gonna ask, do you get a paternity leave from work?
Ish.
Are you taking vacation or something in
Yeah,
place
I'm
of it?
taking PT. So the plan currently is to do like a week of PTO, like once she's born, and then go back for a little while, and then take another like week off to continue helping.
What kind
After
of leave? What kind of leave does your wife get?
She gets 6 weeks fully paid.
See, with I got a full month, which was awesome. It definitely helped. And Libby got, I think she was gonna get 3 months or 2 months, but because of COVID and summer, school would have been out anyway, and so she kind of escaped a lot of that. But yeah, it definitely, that time, especially right away, is so hectic, but
Mhm.
it's also so personal and so like I don't want to say bonding, but like
Well,
it
it
is a
is
very
because
formative time.
every moment is like the first something. I mean,
Yeah. And so then to see again after that, and then everything starts to change so fast at like 4 weeks and 6, 8, 12 weeks. And then like again at like 2 months when they really start to like wake up. I always said she was no longer a potato. Like she
she
really
did
has like
stuff.
more
Yeah,
emotion.
yeah.
And then at
Mhm.
like 3 months and stuff, like I was looking back at videos the other day of her in my phone, and like at 3 months, she's like kind of smiley and stuff. And then from there, it just gets easy. And I don't love that baby phase. This is a conversation Libby and I have a lot. Like she loves the little tiny, tiny newborn cuddly baby. I love where she's at now, or at like 3, 4, 5 months where they really are like expressive and you can start to see personality. Because to me, I don't want to just sit there and hold the kid. Like I will gladly do so, but I would rather be like, oh hey, here's a bouncer. Like I get to see you bounce or crawl or something. So
You get
I,
to have more of an interaction than a.
yeah, and it's so important for development. Like you get to experience new things with them, whereas like literally when they're 4 days old, everything's new to them. So like, cool,
Mhm.
hey, walking around, oh, there's a tree. Oh, you see that tree? But then like now she can almost say tree. So it's definitely different. But
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm stoked. And
You'll do
I'm
great.
something I've really learned though is in a way patience. So like there was a few weeks back I was like cleaning up the kitchen and like doing dishes and doing stuff, and Allie was sitting in the living room watching TV. And I like thought to myself and started to feel myself like get a little annoyed, like, wow, I wish you would come help. And then I sat there and I was like, no, no, she's doing plenty right now.
Yeah.
You can take care of the kitchen.
Yeah.
It'll be all right.
Yep.
And if I'd have been like, hey, will you help me dry the dish? I've been like, yeah, sure. I'm like, no, she doesn't need to do that right now. She can watch TV.
Yeah.
She's and like it's not like she's like just been sitting around the whole time. Like she still does stuff around the house. She still works and she does all this stuff. So I'm like, no, don't like you can't think like that.
Yeah. It's definitely again, it's a weird realization when you're like, okay, my wife is literally growing a child. I can handle this. I will say that workload split is super important, especially as the baby comes. Breastfeeding or not, like obviously breastfeeding is so much more labor intensive for the wife. Um, Libby didn't breastfeed, so like cleaning bottles is literally the worst thing. But like if that's the worst thing, then everything's okay. Like I will say
Oh,
washing
for
bottles
sure.
is my least favorite thing. Like changing a poopy diaper takes you a minute. Washing bottles is going to take you 10 or 20 minutes every time. And there's freaking 4 pieces, 5 pieces per bottle. Like it takes forever.
Get a
And everything has a
dishwasher.
little hole in it, but it's so fine that you have to like scrub every little thing and nook and cranny, and like it's so tedious. But like kind of like you just said, the patience is huge. One of my good friends has a kid who's 3 or 4 now, and said that first year is really tough for relationships. And Libby and I are great. And I think a lot of that is just that partnership and like truly splitting the workload as much as we can, because she had to do all the work at first. And now I can help, and I can't complain about that. Like if I have to wash bottles 3 nights in a row, again, if that's the worst thing that's going on and our kid's healthy, fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which brings up another thing, like when your kid is born, Elliot had a high level of bilirubin, jaundice, pretty much, and so she had to have
Okay.
one little. Sometimes they put you in like the tanning bed. This was after we had left, so they give her one of those blankets that pretty much looks like she's on a tanning bed.
Mm-hmm.
Everything at that moment felt like the end of the world. And you're like, oh my God, my kid has to have this. Like, we have to put her on this thing, and she has to wear these little goggles and whatever. And like, we literally kept having to tell ourselves, like, this is the worst thing that our child has to go through. We are extremely lucky. Like, so take everything like that with a grain of salt too, because everything might seem so drastic at the time, just like having hiccups, when really it's the smallest thing. And just be happy that everyone's happy and healthy. And I mean, you really can't screw it up beyond that. Like everything will come so naturally. And everyone always said that too. And I always thought it was so cheesy. They're like, you're going to be a great dad. It'll just come to you and it'll be so natural. It really is true. Like it would be really hard to go against any of that instinct to like actually hurt your child or to screw something up. Like everything will be fine. Everything is, I mean, you'll figure it all out.
Mhm.
Which I never thought I would have said 10 months ago. In 4 weeks.
Keller's camera froze, but we can still hear him. So
It looks like he's
froze?
sneezing.
yeah, you look like you're like mid sneeze. Your eyes are like you can get.
Oh.
I'm gonna take a picture and send it to you. You can get lost in
That's
these things.
unfortunate.
It is unfortunate.
Oh.
They're like,
like
kind
those.
of open, but kind of not. It's kind of actually pretty funny.
For this part of the podcast, make him a puppet.
Oh, that worked actually really smoothly. I was worried that I was gonna screw up all of my shit, all my setup, but it didn't.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad it didn't.
I'm glad you
I didn't
thought of
even
that
think of that.
consideration. Yeah, thank you. All right. On that note, we're gonna move into the final segment, which is the quick fire question round. I will ask you both a question, and then I'll tell which one of you to answer it first. We will start pretty easy. Favorite color, Christian, go.
My favorite color?
Yes.
Oh, probably black, gray, charcoal.
Keller,
Blue or red?
what's your
I don't know.
favorite drink, Christian?
Oh God.
These are gonna get harder, so
Raspberry peach tea.
razzleberry. Keller,
Yep.
favorite drink, alcoholic or non-alcoholic?
Dos Equis Amber.
Interesting. If you could have any food or drink in front of you right now, what would it be, Christian?
God, these are hard.
They get worse. Just say Casey's breakfast pizza. It's fine.
No, a burger from Red Cow in Minneapolis.
I don't know what that means. Keller,
Nachos and a Dos Equis Amber.
what was the first date with your wife, Christian?
Oh.
Where was it, I suppose?
We went to like when we first started dating, we went to one of the playgrounds at one of the schools and just looked at the stars.
Aww,
It's cheesy, but that's
Cheese
the first one I
FM.
can remember.
Keller,
That's a good question.
you better not share the link with her if you can't answer this.
I think my birthday, I took her to Peppers in Cedar Falls.
Oh man, Peppers! I still have the cup from that place. I love
so good.
Peppers.
That was my favorite place in school.
That's the only reason I even stuck around a semester. I mean, I went there so many times. All right, next question. What song is stuck in your head lately?
Ooh. The one that I keep hearing on the radio that I actually like is Driver's License. There's an emo cover I found on Spotify that's actually really good.
Nice. Keller, what song is stuck in that noggin of yours? A big old head.
Just because he's been like, he did the halftime show and everything, and he's been all over the news. It's
Blinding Lights.
Yep.
Dude, I love
That
The
song.
Weeknd.
Good song.
I thought it was a dope halftime performance.
Justin Bieber's Anyone has been stuck in my head too. It's a really good song.
All right, moving on. If you were a teacher, what subject would you teach, Christian?
Art or music. Probably art.
Keller?
Math or science.
Worst dessert you can think of, Christian?
Anything black licorice.
It's more candy, but I'll take it. Keller?
Fruitcake.
Best Christmas gift you ever got?
Oh boy.
These were supposed to be fast. I have destroyed my own plan.
Yeah, these are two. thoughtful.
How about the Pocket Game Boy when we were like 7 years old? That was pretty awesome. Or the Nintendo 64, maybe one of the consoles.
I think the Xbox, the first original Xbox that we got, was a big deal at the time.
Halo just turned 21 this year, or is about to turn 20 this year. That's a big deal.
Great game. Great game.
For real.
I got the Game Boy Advance.
Is that your answer?
And that was pretty neat. Yeah, that'll be my answer.
All right. The last quick round question.
Quick-ish round.
Best bit of parenting advice you've received from someone else.
I don't know. I guess the best parenting advice I could give is relax and you'll figure it out. Like, it sounds super generic, but everything's going to work out and it will be very well worth it.
I think the best bit of advice I've received would be from one of my coworkers who said, babies are incredibly durable.
Teflon.
And don't worry, everyone screws up.
That's a great way to put it.
I found out not too long ago that my sister dropped me when I was very young, and everybody's like, haha, that makes sense. But I'm like, wait, what? She dropped me? All right. The last thing we're going to do is look at the Twitter poll that I put up earlier today. The question was, what are your thoughts on kids? Want them? Don't want them. I just want a dog for now. And the fourth option was supposed to be have them, but I screwed up. So I put 2 don't want thems, but nobody voted for that one. So the top one was want them with 60%. Just want a dog for now, 30%, and don't want them at all, 10%. I actually have a couple of friends that do not want to have kids at all. So we might do an episode on that too and talk to them about why the pressures of society, people think they need to. It's your womanly right is what the person said. Like that was something it took her a while to get over. So we'll bring them on next sometime soon. Christian will be on several episodes, I'm sure. Keller will be on several episodes as well. We're definitely going to do a follow-up here in a couple of weeks if Keller gets an ounce of free time so we can talk about his experience the day of. If you have extra time, go ahead and take some notes that day. I know you won't be busy doing anything else. So
You can't forget it. It's not something that
it'll
you'll
be
easily
mentally
forget.
ingrained. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Christian, I have a question.
Yes.
You've seen Home Alone 2 Lost in New York, right?
Yes.
Yes. So we were watching this over Christmas time.
I love this movie, so I'm just curious where this is going.
You know the part where
he gets left home alone?
Yes, that too. Marv walks through like the front door of the house and the floor's not there and he falls down. And he gets up and like looks up and goes, "Wow, what a hole." I told Ellie I'm gonna say that.
So it's funny because all of that, I don't even remember. No, yeah, I might have had a chance to say that. It's one of those things where you don't want to look directly at it, but at some point, you just have to make eye contact, and because you have to know, kind of like a car accident, you can't not look one time. I have some regrets throughout the whole process, but it's just one of those things that you kind of have to do it.
I might take this clip and move it to the very beginning of this podcast and be like, what the hell did we get into?
It's the clickbait.
It literally might be the clickbait. All right, guys. Thanks for having this conversation with me. You guys will both be on again soon. We'll do a follow-up, like I said. And other than that, thanks to anybody that's listening. And if you have any questions to ask them for the follow-up, leave them in the comments below. I don't know exactly where this will be posted yet. It'll probably be Spotify and YouTube at the very least. We'll do episodes quite regularly, variety of topics. This will release at the same time as another one, so you can kind of see what the show is going to be about in very different contexts, very different episodes. So looking forward to doing more episodes and looking forward to having more conversations with people like you guys. I don't have a sign off yet. I don't have a sign off like it ain't easy being cheesy or anything, but
Go fuck yourself, San Diego.
and on that note,